years ago, I was designing a new RPG system and thinking about immersion. I wanted each mechanic I designed to feel like the fiction it was trying to convey, and to simply get rid of any rules that took me out of that fiction. Because if they don't fit, the ephemera of a game, its rules, its dice, notepad, and any other accessories, can get in the way of that feeling. I try not to get bogged down by design theory in these reviews, but I do like to get nerdy sometimes, and certain games bring it out in me. This is one of those games. Mappa Mundi, a game wholly focused on eco-fantasy fiction, a game about exploration, where you play as chroniclers for the Mappa Mundi Institute, studying and rediscovering the world, its creatures and its monsters, after the ecological disaster called the Flux. I think a simple way to describe it would be like Monster Hunter, but instead of fighting the monsters, you study them. But more than that, it's a game to whom immersion is clearly important, where I suspect the designers wanted all the ephemera, the rules, the dice, the notepad, to feel like part of your journey. And so, if you don't mind me getting a bit nerdy about it, I'd like to talk about how Mappa Mundi uses its ephemera to give you that feeling of discovery. The game comes as a box set, decorated with some beautiful artwork. Inside the box, you'll find so much more beautiful artwork in the form of a hardback core rulebook and a set of cards. The book has this chronicle style to it, with rough textured paper to add to the effect. And the character art has a Renaissance air to it, which really suits that theme of rediscovery. There's 4 main sections: an intro with in-universe text to introduce you to the world and key concepts, a character building section, a how to play section with GM advice, and finally the setting and cardiary section, which properly builds the world of Ecumene, its regions, major players, and its creatures, and gives you some information about these cards. If you're like me, you were probably most curious about the cards when I opened the box. I'll get to how they're used, but already the game is making a promise here about what you can expect, discovering natural landscapes and fantastical monsters. There are 3 mechanics that interact to form the core of Mappa Mundi: ability checks, skills, and shaping. They work a little differently from how you might expect. First off, the characters have 4 attributes: traversal, observation, deduction, and exploration, each with an associated die size from a D4 to a D12. In tricky situations, the narrator will call for a check in one of these categories and declare its difficulty number. The player rolls the associated die and has to match or beat the target number. Or do they? Instead of rolling, you can look at your list of skills, which are purely descriptive and don't generally have associated mechanics. If you can reasonably say that your skill should help in this situation, you automatically succeed the check. So let's say you're trying to disarm a trap that might injure a rare creature. The GM calls for a difficulty 5 deduction check. You might say, "Can I use my fixer's steady hand skill here?" And the narrator might agree that you should be able to do this without a check. Shaping is a little different. Mappa Mundi encourages everyone to be involved with its world building and storytelling, and at any time you can add a description to a scene as long as it doesn't contradict the narrator's or any other player's description. The book calls this process shaping. There aren't any hard rules around this. You can actually use it to give you a mechanical boost. So, for example, you want to wade across a river and the narrator says it's quite deep, calling for a difficulty 5 traversal check. You could say, perhaps I spot a strangely shaped tree that spirals across the river. We could cross there. The narrator might reduce the difficulty to 4, and your shaping might lead to more story development. The game starts with picking a class: Archivist, Diviner, Fixer, or Guardian. And then it asks you to assign your bones. In the lore of the world, people are gifted bones or dice at various stages of their life. At this point, your character will have a 2-sided fate bone given to them soon after their birth, 2 4-sided growth bones, which is a coming of age token, and 2 6-sided travel bones, given to them when they first stride out into the world. You assign your growth and travel bones to your attributes. I love this simple way of making dice feel more like a part of the game. It raises one tiny barrier to immersion, because when you sit at the table fidgeting with dice, well, that's what your character might be doing too. You then pick skills and also interactions for unveiling the behaviour of creatures and monsters. And that's it. You have a character, a chronicler of the Mappa Mundi Institute. And it's time to choose your starting region on the continent of Avasu, which you'll notice has some similarities to our Eurasia. The monsters, creatures, and peoples you'll find in these regions are inspired by real-world cultures. So, Leknica, for example, is largely inspired by Polish and wider Slavic stories, where winged dragon knights decorate their armour with feathers of the legendary Zmi. So, once you're ready, the gameplay consists of 3 phases: research, journey, and encounter. These are actually quite familiar phases of an RPG adventure, but with unique twists. So, the research phase might involve the chroniclers hearing a rumour or being given a task that they need to investigate. And as they're doing this, the narrator builds a journey deck based on what they find out. If they find useful information about their mission, the narrator adds a card rightwise to the deck. And if they fail to discover something, the associated card is inverted. When the journey phase begins, the locations are revealed as the players get there. This feels like the location was always there, and that you're discovering it rather than creating it. If the card is rightwise, then the area is relatively upbeat and simple to traverse. You'll notice though that the cards have a dual image, a brighter one at the top and a darker version at the bottom. So when the card revealed is inverted, that means there's some kind of peril that the party must face. Each card has an entry in the book to help with ideas for what the characters might discover there. The journey can also be scattered with creature and opportunity cards for mini encounters along the way. But once you've successfully navigated the journey, the encounter phase begins. You can think of this as a boss encounter, except there's no combat in Mappa Mundi. Instead, typically the encounter phase will involve studying a monster and understanding its behaviours by using the interaction abilities you chose. And during the process, you need to be careful not to sever the threads that represent your target's agency. After all, these are fantastical creatures to be respected and learned from, not captured and killed. So, first off, the book explains that regions are designed so that you can transplant them into any setting you like. That also made me think, You can also easily transplant the journey mechanics into any system you like. There are plenty of games that might benefit from a travel system like this one. As for official expansions, Three Sails is publishing collections of adventures, Chronicles of the Wilds. Volume 1 is for sale now with 4 adventures. The first one is actually available for free on the website to help you learn the system. And at least one of those adventures has solo options, which I always love to see. I actually don't have Chronicles of the Wilds yet, so I can't really comment, but I'm really curious to see if the solo rules are similar to what I came up with when I was playing around with the game. Mappa Mundi is an intentionally very rules-light game. It emphasises rulings over rules, plain language text, and trusting the table to interpret that text in the way that feels most natural to them. It makes perfect sense for that immersive style, but it comes with a downside. If you're not sure exactly how something works mechanically, the book might not make it totally clear. One example is fate checks. The rules say this: fate points can be spent to make a fate check to attempt to alter the outcome of a situation by rolling a d2 or flipping a coin. Minor situations can be changed with a single fate point, and major ones may require several. Now maybe it's just me, but I still have questions about fate checks. Like, do they give you a 50-50 chance of passing a check after you already failed? Or do you add the result of your d2 to the check? Do you roll multiple d2s when you spend multiple points? Or is it just a cost that the narrator sets? One advantage RPGs have over board games is the thin curtain between your imagination and the game's mechanics. Where often a board game might feel like a set of rules and instructions with a thematic paint, for RPGs it's often the other way around. The world and story has mechanics that bring it to life. Mappa Mundi has one of the thinnest barriers between its fiction and mechanics of any conventional RPG that I've played. So many little things add to the immersion, including things I haven't mentioned yet, like how the party is meant to nominate someone to keep their notes, sketching the creatures and environments they encounter, and keeping a record of what happened. This then becomes the chronicle that your party is keeping for the Mappa Mundi Institute, and it's quite likely that your notekeeper will build a character that ties into that role, perhaps picking the archivist class with the sketch interaction. The dice feel like part of your character, the skills let you bypass fate and make your own, and the journey deck feels like discovering a world that was there waiting for you. This is a beautiful game, in more ways than just its art. And for me personally, while I might usually prefer more action and drama, I'm absolutely looking forward to playing Mappa Mundi some more, and even using it to enhance my other games. Is this game for you? Well, maybe if you've felt before that you'd rather study a creature than fight it, or if you'd rather respect a creature's natural habitat instead of, say, capturing it and making it battle for you. Or perhaps, like me, you just fiddle with your dice a bit too much. Thank you ever so much for watching, and again a massive special thanks to this month's Ko-fi supporters, who helped me find a new microphone to replace my dented old condenser that loved to record the seagulls outside the window instead of my voice. I've got quite a big queue of games now. There are so many small and indie games out there that deserve your attention even if you decide they're not for you. So please do subscribe if you haven't already, to discover a new one every fortnight or so. And until next time, happy adventures!